Welcome to Bauer's Museum. I'm thrilled to be your guide to Fantasy Realms of Imagination, a landmark exhibition that celebrates many of the finest fantasy creators, reveals how their imagined lands, languages, and creatures came into being, and delves into the traditions of a genre that has created some of the most passionate and enduring fandoms. I'm Matt Sangster, Professor of Romantic Studies, Fantasy and Cultural History at the University of Glasgow, where I co-direct the Centre for Fantasy and the Fantastic and the Collections Lab, and I am the external curator on this exhibition. While this virtual tour offers a teaser for what can be seen in the exhibition, the full splendour of the show requires journeying to Bauer's Museum in person. Be sure to visit before the exhibition closes on February the 16th, 2025. During your visit, you can also immerse yourself in Bauer's Museum's 8 other permanent collection galleries from across the globe. To book your tickets, visit bowers.org and reserve your spot today. Fantasy Realms of Imagination is a British Library exhibition with contributions from Bauer's Museum. It is supported by international touring partner Wayland Games. Additional support is provided by MAD Systems. Bone and Slay's An Ancient Map of Fairyland was produced in 1918. It depicts a place of fantasy, literary imagination, and make-believe. Its bird's-eye view shows an island with extraordinary topography, populated with fairy tales, myths, legends, nursery rhymes, children's stories, poems, and plays from across cultures. It's a touchstone object for this exhibition as it shows the ways in which fantasy draws together numerous influence into one given space and the connections between different kinds of fantasy storytelling. Alan Garner's 1967 novel The Owl Service reimagines the legend of the maiden Blodeuwedd from the Mabinogion, a compilation of early Welsh literature which intertwines myth, folklore, tradition, and history. The legend intrudes into the lives of Garner's 3 teenage protagonists who find themselves forced into reenacting the story. The relationship between owls and flowers, which is key to the novel, was inspired by a dinner plate, so here we're very glad to be able to show Alan Garner's actual owl service. The Ballad of Thomas the Rhymer tells the story of Thomas and his abduction by the Queen of Elfland. 7 years later, he is released to the human world with the gift of prophecy, the tongue that cannot lie. The ballad survives in numerous versions, but we're showing this late 15th century manuscript, which was burned in the Ashburnham House fire. And we're also showing alongside it a more modern version. This is the performance script for Ellen Kushner's 1989 novel, Thomas the Rhymer, with scribbled notes for the performances that she gave around the time of the novel's launch. In the exhibition section on fairy tales, we were keen to think about the ways that fairy tale traditions can be subverted, as well as the ways that they can play out. The Tales of Sinbad, shown here, is from a similar genre of stories to the Arabian Nights. Jahazarad, who has to keep her stories going to avoid death, was one of our inspirations for the section of the exhibition on endings. The tales in this volume are told to save Prince Sinbad, who has been falsely accused of seduction by one of his father's concubines. This 16th century South Indian manuscript version depicts a happy ending in which all is forgiven. The prince assumes his father's throne. These ballet costumes were worn by Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev in their roles as Princess Aurora and Prince Florimond in the Royal Ballet's 1968 production of Tchaikovsky's The Sleeping Beauty. Fairy tales are frequently reinvented in performance art, but this version of the story has a happy ending with Aurora rescued by her prince. Fantastical narratives appear in all sorts of forms. In opera and ballet, they're often quite dominant as paradigms. Fantasy epics often run to many pages or many volumes as authors create detailed worlds and intricate sagas. Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings, a linked series of 4 trilogies and 1 quartet, is a classic example. Over 16 books, Hobb weaves the stories of a royal bastard, a fool prophet, and a family of maritime traders and their sentient ships. The threads finally come together to link the realms of humans, dragons, and the semi-mythical Elderlings as the series progresses. Some of the roots of fantasy lie in classical epic. So one of the things we're able to show in the exhibition is the way that these older foundational stories of Western culture have come to connect with later fantasies. The notes and glosses in this 14th century copy of Homer's epic poem The Iliad show the intense engagement of readers with the text. The Iliad, set towards the end of the mythical siege of Troy by the Greeks, is a classic tale of war, graphically depicting the brutality of the battlefield. However, like many later fantasies, it is also a tale of personal conflicts, both within armies and among the gods, who scheme to protect the mortals they favour. Ursula K. Le Guin's Circe books are classics of fantasy literature, and this exhibition is the first time that many of the manuscripts have been displayed. This is part of the manuscript of the first book, A Wizard of Earthsea, 1968. The story tells how the over-ambitious young wizard Ged releases a shadow creature that attacks and relentlessly pursues him. In the excerpt shown on these pages, Ged, having sought refuge with his old teacher Ogion, finally realizes he must become the pursuer and confront the shadow on his own terms of his defined peace. Below the manuscript, you can also see the drawings that Le Guin made while she created Earthsea. Here, this is the broken ring Evereth Akbe that Ged seeks in the second book, The Tombs of Atuan. And here, on the second image, you can see the priestess Tenar's first sight of Ged. Tenar rescues Ged from the tombs and flees her own narrow existence there. Fantasy authors often enjoy dealing with the devil, both as a villain and as a hero. John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost condemns Lucifer's pride and arrogance, but it also frames him as an active figure striving for change, as in the Gustave Doré illustration here, in which Satan boldly plunges through space. Later readers have often seen Milton's devil as an attractive rebel. In the words of the poet William Blake, the reason Milton wrote at liberty when he wrote of devils and hell is because he was a true poet, of the devil's party without knowing it. Giovanni Battista Piranesi was an architect, archaeologist and artist who studied the layered histories of Rome, but who also dreamed of wilder uses of stone and brick. His carceri etchings of imaginary prisons depict vast environments filled with stairs, shadows and machines. In the second edition, shown here, the plates appear to have been edited to make some of their geometries impossible, extending further into the realms of the fantastic. Piranesi directly inspired Susanna Clarke's 2020 novel Piranesi, in which the character Piranesi dwells in a vast house. The house consists of numerous part-flooded, statue-adorned halls through which tides surge and seabirds fly. The notes and sketches shown here demonstrate how Clarke constructed Piranesi's bizarre, enchanted world, carefully mapping its rooms and plotting how its waters would flow. Piranesi's environment seems strange, a sense that intensifies as the house's secrets are revealed. However, the book's magic lies in Piranesi's love for the house. Through him, readers can come to love it too. Fantasy production is often collaborative. C.S. Lewis planned to include a map in the second Narnia books, Prince Caspian, which was published in 1951. He sent a very rough sketch to the series illustrator Pauline Baynes, who produced a final version. Lewis wrote to Baynes that, "My idea was that the map should be more like a medieval map, mountains and castles drawn, perhaps winds blowing at the corners, a few heraldic-looking ships, whales and dolphins in the seas." Following these guidelines, Baynes later created a beautiful coloured map that was sold as a poster in the 1970s. Many creators of fantasy begin when they're very young. As children, the Bronte siblings, Charlotte, Branwell, Emily and Anne, created a shared imaginary world whose history they chronicled in a series of little books like these. Their imagined city, Glasstown, was inspired by the games they played, news reports, and stories such as the Arabian Nights. Its geography was based on the delta of the Niger River in West Africa. The society included Ashanti people from an area in modern-day Ghana and significant figures for European history, particularly the Duke of Wellington, on whom Charlotte Bronte had a considerable crush. These stories were not published in their lifetimes, but have subsequently inspired numerous readers and numerous writers, including the illustrator Isabel Greenberg, who created a graphic novel telling the story of Glasstown's origin and development that was published in 2020. This explores the difficulties that Charlotte felt in saying goodbye to her childhood world. The original artwork by Greenberg shows the Bronte siblings literally building the world out of books, representing their own literary inspirations. Fan creativity is an important part of fantasy. These costumes were created and developed for live-action role-playing, or LARPing. When taking part in a LARP, players dress up as their character to physically act out scenarios in a fictional setting. These 3 costumes were all made for the Curious Pastimes LARP for characters who developed and changed over time as their players refined their sense of the characters. They were made to express elements of those characters' personalities, but also with certain practical ends in mind. LARPing often takes outside, and durability and practicality are important considerations. Dryad Costumes designer said must be relatively easy to wear, suitable for all weathers, and able to withstand mud, rough terrain, and battles. She wrote that she uses heavy yet washable fabrics, using freestyle embroidery, applique and textured laying to achieve a tactile look for high fantasy garments. Thank you for embarking on this virtual journey through fantasy realms of imagination. For the full collection and captivating experience, I want to invite you to visit Bowers Museum before the exhibition closes on the 16th of February 2025. For more information and a full schedule of exhibition-related events, please visit bowers.org. On behalf of Bowers Museum, I want to thank you, as always, for your support.